we are, back again, Group C, Colombia, Greece, Ivory Coast and Japan. And to discuss it with me, as ever, we know him, you know him, it's Work the Space, better known as Jack. How you doing, Jack?
I'm not bad, Doctor. How are you doing?
Oh, don't do that. Okay, I'm doing good, thank you. It's nice to step into my office.
Oh, thanks, man.
We're here to talk about the Group of Death, Group C.
The Group of Death. Well, we were discussing this before. It's the Group of Death without there being a favourite in it. Like, when you sit here, the Group of Death, you think, oh, that's three really strong teams who people expect to do well going out. This is a group where... This is the group of the dark horses. A few teams here, Colombia, Ivory Coast, even maybe Japan, have been noted down as these could be the surprise packages of the tournament.
Yeah.
And they've all been put together. So someone's surprise package is not making it through. But where do you want to kick this one off? Which horse are you backing and are we kicking off with?
I'm backing the horse that are currently going to be without Falcao for the World Cup. Let's go Colombia. Let's get on to Colombia immediately. Because I think they are... I don't want to say they're my dark horse, but they are a deeper shade of horse, and I think they're going to do well.
Are we just doing horse references now for the rest of this?
I don't know. You've brought the horse thing in, and I'm not sure where to go.
Okay, I'll ride with it.
Oh, very good. I think that's a great... that doesn't work. Yeah, go on then. What do you think, Colombia?
Colombia, an interesting one. Obviously, Falcao was always a doubt for this World Cup, and then there was a little bit of a murmur, oh, he's training with Monaco, can he make it back? But this knee injury that has been an issue this season has come back to bite him. But Colombia have a few players who have played really well this year. James Rodriguez had a really good season at Monaco, considering obviously they didn't have Falcao for a long period. Jackson Martinez again. They've got some good players in the attacking third who have played pretty well this season. And then at the back, they've got players like Zuniga, who had a pretty good season in Serie A at fullback. And then they've also got Amaro, who had a bit of an indifferent year, but could still be a half-decent player for them. It's interesting. Obviously, Amaro was it West Ham he went to on loan, and he didn't have a massive impact there, but there was kind of a bit of a fanfare about him because he'd done well at Napoli a few seasons before.
Ask me if you think they can win the World Cup.
Can Colombia win the World Cup, Ben?
No!
Oh, you were prepping that one, weren't you?
Yeah, but I do think they're very strong at the back. As you just mentioned, I think their back four will be Zuniga, Amaro, Zapata and Yepes. Very experienced back line, in my book. Youth experience, everything you need in a back four. I've said it before, I fancy him. Guarin in front of them, the Inter player who is very good. As you mentioned, Jackson Martinez, without Falcao, the burden will be left on his shoulders, I feel. And will they... They've got Ibarra as well, Ibarbo, who's known as a bit of a pace monster. I think... Do you know, I think, Jack, and you were tipping teams earlier to be a little dark horse. As I say, I think Colombia could shock a few people, even without Falcao. I still think, I should point out, Falcao had a terrific qualifying campaign for Colombia, who qualified very well. I just think, I don't know, South American country in a South American World Cup. You never know. You never know.
I think, again, Ivory Coast are going to have that benefit. Just one more thing before we move on. I feel like there's one name on the Colombia bench that players have FR that are going to be staring at and going, I know him. Alvarez Balanta. Going to be an interesting one. He only has 2 caps coming from River Plate. He's the kind of least experienced outfield player in this Colombia side. And I think there's a few players who are going to be, and a few people watching who are going to be wondering, is this guy the real deal? Because FM has a bit of a reputation for finding these diamonds in the rough. And he's one of these players who's really highly tipped on the game. Had an okay season at River Plate. And I think a lot of people, myself included, are just a little bit excited to see what he's going to bring to the table.
I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play at all. Like I say, I think their back four are set in stone. Unless, of course, things change, and I'm completely wrong. We'll find out during the tournament.
Injuries happen in the World Cup. We've seen it. It'll be the training session before the first game and someone drops down. As you mentioned, he's not going to be first pick, but I don't know. This could be an interesting one. There's young names which are thrown into the world stage from a World Cup, but often just called upon off the old bench, and maybe he might get a chance.
I agree. Shall we look at the Ivory Coast?
Yeah, why not?
Because they are another one, which the best team in Africa, despite having indifferent tournaments when it comes to the African Cup of Nations in the last couple of years. I think they are the best team in Africa on paper. Without a doubt on paper, the best team in Africa.
But paper doesn't win. Well, paper doesn't win you a horse race, does it? Or a football match for that matter.
Well, if you've got a bet on, that'll be on the paper, especially if it's on.
Yeah, but that doesn't win you the match unless you fixing bets. But let's not talk about that because
that's.
Have you
ever bet on horses?
Yes.
You're coming to me talking to me about horses like you know about horses. Right. We're getting away from the main part of the show.
Oh, God.
Thank you.
So, Ivory Coast, as you mentioned, on paper, good team. They've got Aurier, who's been linked with moves all across Europe this summer already.
Yep.
Kolo Touré, bit of a legend.
Yep.
They've got players like Bamba, who's played pretty well and been a member of the team. Zakora, again, they've got some names there, and it's a good mix of experience and youth. And at midfield-wise, they look really strong. Yaya Touré, Tiote had a bit of a hit-and-miss season. He didn't have a massive impact for Newcastle, but he's the kind of player who has shown glimpses of what he's done at national level at Newcastle, particularly in his first season there. So I feel like in those areas they're really strong, and then their final third is just it's impressive. They've got players like Drogba, Kalou, Gervinho, who had an incredible season. I was kind of pleased to see that he had a good season at Roma. And then they have got players like Boney, of course, again, a player who's had another good season. And then they've got a few players, like Max Gradel and Matthias Bolli, who are just known for their pace.
Yeah, they're another team that are kind of... I don't want to say they're purely counter-attack, but they can certainly set up that way. They can certainly set up to hit teams on the break. As you say, very strong core, very experienced core as well. Touré, both Tourés and Tiote will keep it very solid in the middle, you expect. And as you say, their fullbacks aren't too shabby either. This is we were talking about for Spain in previous shows. Go back and listen, you'll love it. That it could be a few of the Spanish players' last tournament. I look across at the Ivorian front line, and it certainly will be Didier Drogba's potential final tournament. I think it will undoubtedly be his final tournament. And he is the pin-up. We shouldn't overestimate this. He is the absolute pin-up for African football. And it'll be his last chance to make a mark on the international stage, I feel. So for him, I'd quite like Ivory Coast to do quite well. Because they had a disappointing run last time. If you remember their group, it was a horrible group, which I think had Argentina and Holland in it. It was a treacherous group. Whereas this time round, it's a little bit softer. You look at the other teams in the group, and I think that they'll be fine. So I fancy them to get out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you said about their pace and their counter-attack game. I don't feel like they've got that midfielder who's amazing at the link-up play. That's not saying that Yaya Touré isn't going to be good at link-up and won't be vital for them. But I think for Ivory Coast, he'll have a lot more of a role in terms of shielding the back four, and then they're going to hit it out wide. They've got fast, pacey players in the wide areas. They've got players like Boney and Drogba, who, don't get me wrong, they're great players, but they're not renowned for their pace.
No.
Particularly an aging Drogba. So I think they're going to be, looking for the wide areas, particularly when they attack. But no, as you mentioned, well adapted to the counter-attack, and I think that the heat of Brazil is obviously going to suit them being a team from Africa, and I think that the pace that they can bring on off the bench, particularly in the final third, could win them games, just catching teams out who just aren't prepared for it.
So shall we look at the two underdogs? Who do you want to go? We can have Greece or Japan. Where do you want to eat out?
I want to go with my favourite here, who I think they're my dark horses, Japan.
Back on the horses, chat.
I'm sorry,
what is with
no more horses. But no, Japan are the team who I think could pull off a few shocks. Now we've been discussing this pre-tournament for a few weeks, and I was like, I think Japan could do quite well, and you've shot me down a number of times. I just think, okay, Japan, they fall into that mould of Holland and Argentina, a team with some really good attacking players, not the best defence, and maybe not that clinical finish that you need to do amazingly at a World Cup. But to me, they've got players like Kayotake, Kagawa, Honda, three of the best kind of Asian attacking midfielders, and I feel like they're three players who can fight with the big boys. I think Kagawa's just not been given a chance in England. Honda's 27, he had a half decent season at Milan, and then people know, oh god, I've lost his name.
I'm taking you to task. Shut up. You've just compared them to Holland and Argentina. Van Persie, Messi. Who's the Japanese equivalent?
I said that they don't have that. What I'm saying is they don't.
How can you compare them then?
Because they've got that strength in the attacking third in terms of the creative force that those teams have.
Apart from up front, apart from where the goals matter, which I don't think they've got someone at the World Cup calibre.
They've got Asako, who had a really good season at 1860 Munich in the Bundesliga second division.
But exactly.
No, but he's young. He's proven himself. I think you'll be surprised.
I don't think I'll be surprised. You've just said he's had a good season. You're a liar.
He has had a good season.
He hasn't, has he?
He has.
He got 6 goals.
Yeah, coming off the bench, and he set up a lot.
So a bench player for a second division side in Germany is the equivalent to Messi and Van Persie. Let's talk about Greece. Good lord. Right. So, any Messis in the Greece squad?
No. Oh, they've got Samaras. Same hair.
You can't. Well, yeah.
Checkmate.
Well played. Greece are kind of funny. You hear there's a Greece game on, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the Greeks, but when a Greek game's on, you kind of like, if there's one game I'm going to just go out and miss in the World Cup, it's probably a game that Greece are involved in. Is that harsh?
Oh, that's terrible.
Do you not agree?
I think maybe.
I think that
I do agree. I think out of the 4 teams in this group, they're probably the ones who I think are going to struggle the most. But I think this could be the kind of weird group, and maybe this is just me, but when I watch World Cups, I'm like, well, what happens if 4 teams all draw every game and they're all tied? Like, what happens then?
Odd. You actually think it's going to happen, don't you?
No, I don't think it could. I don't think it will happen. But this is the perfect opportunity. This is the perfect storm of 4 teams who I think are all kind of.
A World Cup comes round and Jack's there thinking, well, I hope there's some draws. Do you know, there's lots of draws in this group.
I just think that these teams are all so evenly matched that it's going to come down to people turning up on the day for their teams. I think Greece have shown that they can set up defensively and grind out results. Obviously, they won the Euros years ago now, but it's in recent memory.
10 years ago.
But then you look at their team, it's not a young team. 6 of their players were in that team that won the Euro. So you look at it, in my eyes, they're the kind of team who are going to set up defensively, and I think it's going to rely on them having a goal scorer. I mean, as you mentioned, they've got Mitroglou and Samaras. I assume that's how they'll start, although, to be honest, I have no idea how Greece are going to play this. I haven't seen that much of them.
Like I say, you go out when they're playing. They're that sort of team. No one knows what they're going to do. No one's done any scouting. They've been out for a beer. They're just like, Greece are playing. Nah, I'll go out. Forget it.
Should we set a challenge for the viewers of watching a Greece game? And they can let us know what they think.
If anyone watches a Greece game, do let us know. I just want to know how it went, what went on, anything exciting happened. Yeah, you never know, do you? So go on then. It's time for that dreaded moment of potentially full-making predictions. So
Colombia, Japan.
Colombia, Japan. You're really going with Japan.
Yep.
He's going with Japan. Right, well, I think it'll be Colombia and Ivory Coast. Because it's obviously going to be Colombia and Ivory Coast. You're genuinely going with Japan. You get one more chance to change your mind.
I'm going to stick my neck out on the line.
And you're saying Japan?
I'm saying Japan.
He said Japan. Right.
I think Japan's creative midfielders could create chances.
We've heard about what you think about the creative midfielders. We know that you've got nothing offering elsewhere. Okay, in the comment section on the YouTube, on Twitter if you're on iTunes, let us know who do you think is going through Group C at ForTheFans Show. Is it Group C? It is Group C, isn't it?
It is Group C.
Group C. Who do you think's going through? I'm going Ivory Coast, Colombia. Jack's going Colombia, Japan. I've been Ben.
I've been Jack.
And we'll catch you next time. I'm out.
I'm going to ride off on my horse into the sunset.
No, you're not.